Welcome to Inside Academia, the weekly program where we take a look behind the ivory curtain, seeking a frank discussion of American education. I'm your host, Andy Nash. My guest this week is Dr. John Zmirak. He's professor of literature at Thomas More College in New Hampshire, but he's also editor-in-chief of the Intercollegiate Studies Institute College Guide entitled Choosing the Right College, as well as of the website www.collegeguide.org. Dr. Zmirak, welcome to Inside Academia.
Thanks, Andy. Good to be here.
Today I'd like to talk to you about what has now become the famous ISI College Guide, and it's gotten quite a degree of traction. It started back in 1998, from what I understand. It's been around for 13 years, and it features very in-depth profiling of over 140 different colleges and universities in the physical book, and you have many more on your website. First of all, I want to just ask you about the history, the inception of the College Guide. How and why exactly did it get started back in 1998?
Well, there was a major problem beginning really to be identified in the early 90s of political correctness and campus politics and classroom intimidation that became kind of famous in the conservative press. It came up in conservative alternative newspapers like the Dartmouth Review. And as the internet started to emerge and become a mainstream thing, these reports were all over the internet. They were all over the conservative press. People were very alarmed and very disturbed, and then they wanted a reliable resource on, well, which schools are sane? Which schools are having the most problems? What's happening to my alma mater? Should I be giving money to the school I went to, or are they undermining all the values that I represent? So I think ISI being focused on ideas, on professors, on students and graduate students, we thought we were the people to step up and do a responsible, sober look at the state of academia that would tell some of the horror stories, but would also focus on the serious academic content at the colleges and look for the best things at the colleges as well, and try to give a balanced picture. And to evaluate these colleges from the point of view of a coherent educational philosophy. And that educational philosophy we use is the one outlined by John Henry Newman in The Idea of a University. We have a vision of what colleges should look like based in part on what they used to look like, a vision of what curriculum should be, of what campus life should be, of what academic freedom should be. And we judge 140 American schools in each physical guide and 80 or 90 more on the website according to this coherent criterion. So it's not just a list of horror stories. It's not just rah-rah for schools that happen to have large college Republican chapters. But these are serious examinations of the schools. And we run our profiles by faculty at the schools who are affiliated with ISI for their evaluation. So we're not embarrassed showing these to college presidents and college professors. These are serious evaluations of the schools.
We're living in a day and age, Dr. Zmirak, where I don't know what's become more niche, looking for a serious education or looking for a conservative-leaning college. But for I guess, the mass audience, college-bound student, not looking for any kind of hardcore ideological bent or any kind of a traditional flavor, but just a run-of-the-mill general university, what would they look for in something like the College Guide, as opposed to, the Princeton Review or any number of other competitive outlets chronicling the same sort of information? How is your product distinguished from all of those for the middle-of-the-road American college-bound student?
Well, like all those guides, we talk about financial aid, student debt, campus safety, sports, the average cost, the average debt by every student, the best majors and the best programs. We cover all the same things that U.S. News and Princeton Review would cover. What we add in also is, will you get a coherent liberal arts education? Will you graduate knowing about the American founding? Will you have read Shakespeare? Will you know anything about the Bible, Western civilization, philosophy? Will you have the traditional college intellectual experience? Or will you come out with a patchy, sort of stitched together bunch of electives and esoteric subjects? Is this a school where you have to take serious literature classes, or can you do things like post-war Japanese monster movies instead of a course on Shakespeare or Milton? I mean, this is real. Can you fulfill all your history requirements with like Latina lesbian autobiography and emerge not knowing, the shape of the United States or really when it was founded? We are astonished at how shabby the requirements are for college curricula, even some of the most elite colleges. We think they're taking for granted that people learn things in high school that they don't learn in high school anymore.
Right.
And there's a shocking level of ignorance among too many students.
So from what you're saying, I guess you've stayed true to the mission, the founding inception of the College Guide in terms of its format, in terms of what it offers. I was going to ask you, how has the guide necessarily changed? Has it necessarily given into a broader market demand that in this day and age looks for a college that offers more amenities than another college? As you know, many universities are in an arms race with one another in providing resort-style dorms and gymnasiums and facilities of all different kinds, recreational and otherwise, and entertainment as well. So, being that it seems like there's more of a demand these days than 15 years ago even, does the College Guide chronicle that or put any premium on that sort of thing when deciding what to include or what to omit in its pages?
Well, we warn against schools like that, which jack up their tuition and saddle their students with debt in return for giving them a transient, pleasant college experience in fancy schmancy surroundings. I would say those are schools we tend to say, okay, this is a gold-plated Cadillac with a bad engine. We guide people more towards really first-rate colleges that might be a few shacks in the woods, or a big state university that has areas of excellence in the middle of an otherwise sprawling and mediocre campus. We have changed a little in our format. When we first came out, we devoted a full third of each guide, each essay in the guide, to the political atmosphere at the school. We devote 1/3 to academic atmosphere, and we would devote 1/3 to student life. We decided that was too heavy an emphasis on campus politics, that we didn't want to judge colleges based just on how many Republicans were on the faculty or, what kind of demonstrations were there. We report on all that, but we've diminished that to the proportionate size, to about 1/6 of the essay has to do with campus politics, except where it's warranted, where a school is really out of control leftist or really admirable in its embrace of the Western tradition and American heritage, then we'll give it more space. But we try to focus on the academic quality, the best programs. We list the best professors, the best programs. We even list the 8 courses at each school that every student should take in order to get a balanced education. We go in the course catalog and we identify what courses are currently offered that you as a student, if you go there, should absolutely take.
Now, what you rank the colleges, I imagine, as well as or no, you do not.
We don't rank them, but we rate them. We give them a red, yellow, or green light, depending on the level of academic freedom and civic freedom, intellectual freedom there. Yeah.
I see. I'm looking at your website, collegeguide.org, and you do give bulleted things of what the main nuggets of what someone would learn in reading the guide. It talks about quality of curricular, the rigor of the academic departments, the professors, what classes to take and what to stay away from, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that jumps out at me here is that it also mentions the most overpriced colleges and the good values you may not know about. So yeah. In your definition, what would constitute an overpriced college?
Well, a college that sends its students out with more than $25,000 in student loan debt. I would say by definition it's overpriced. Whatever it's charging, and really, you have to count tuition against the financial aid that's offered. So some of the most expensive high-ticket schools like Sarah Lawrence also offer a lot of aid, so the sticker shock can be misleading. But I look at the average debt of students emerging, and if it's $25,000 or more, that school is either charging too much or not offering enough aid. And I think it's just criminal to send people out into the world with that kind burden on their shoulders. They're never going to get out from under it. I am actually still paying graduate school student loans at 47 years old. It's a great burden, and I think it's something people need to look at very carefully.
And it's certainly becoming more and more acute, even at the undergraduate level, as we go forward with the skyrocketing cost of tuition. But let me ask you, with respect to all the schools that you chronicle, if you had to give me two opposite ends of the spectrum, the very best schools and the very worst schools, if you had to give me some examples, what would be some of the very best and some of the very worst, and why?
Okay. We're doing a report later this summer on our 10 favorite and our 10 most upsetting schools. And that's in terms of the political atmosphere and academic freedom there, how balanced they are. So our number one school that we laud, that we praise, is Princeton University. It is the Ivy League school that is most open in its intellectual atmosphere, the most welcoming to people of a wide variety of political views, traditional religious believers, patriotic Americans. There are plenty of liberals on the faculty, plenty of liberal classes, plenty of liberal groups, and that's fine. There are also, unlike at many other Ivy League schools, serious conservative groups. There's a serious program, the James Madison program, run by Robert George, which brings conservative scholars to campus, which sponsors real debates, real exchanges. So I think students who are lucky enough to get into Princeton, which offers magnificent financial aid, it's one of the most generous in the country. They make sure that working class students, like I was, are able to go there. They will also find their academic excellence and intellectual freedom. So 3 cheers for Princeton, which we would be ranking our number one college in America. At the opposite end of the spectrum, we call it one of our top 10 train wrecks. The number one is Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, which is perhaps the most politically correct college in the country, which is quite an honor. The faculty are univocally left-wing. Not only are the bathrooms co-ed, the dorm rooms are co-ed. In fact, they're abolished any kind of gender distinction in the dormitories because it might be offensive to transgender students. A student union organization sent an email to all students asking them to stop using he, she, him, and her because it was offensive to transgender students, and they suggested a whole variety of nonsensical-sounding pronouns that could replace these. The school allowed pornographic chalkings all over the grounds of the school. The Gay and Lesbian Student Center, sponsored by the school, has a lending library of pornography with titles like Goat Boy and the Potato Chip Ritual and Dress Up for Daddy. These are official university facilities with a lending library of sadomasochistic pornography. The curriculum is a mess. You can get a good education there if you know how to put it together, but quite likely you will emerge with a patchwork because it has very few curricular requirements. English majors aren't required to take Shakespeare. Political science majors don't necessarily have to study the Constitution. So the school, while it has some great resources, we're not saying there aren't any good people there. Yeah. As a whole experience, it's a really kind of a disturbing and messy thing. If you go there, proceed with caution.
So you would be the only kind of college guide out there that would really spotlight all of that or showcase that kind of thing.
Yes, we do that. I mean, there are some guides for conservative and Christian parents out there, but what those tend to do is compile the good schools they want to recommend.
Right.
And we do that too, and that's fine, that's great. But not everybody's going to go to Hillsdale College or Christendom College or Thomas Aquinas. A lot of people are going to go to their local state university, or they're going to go to some first or second tier college they get into that gives them good financial aid. Yeah. So what we do is say, if you go to Georgetown, if you go to the University of Michigan, who are the best professors? What are the best programs? What are the 8 courses you should take to get a traditional core curriculum experience? Where can you get in touch with like-minded conservative Christian religious
students? Let me ask you just as a final question now, because we're running out of time. In the age of mass higher education that we're living in, and it's been true now for a few decades, but it seems to be more the case now than before, how much of an audience out there prior to going into college do you think is looking for intellectual enrichment as opposed to the mindless sort of credentialism, the getting the ticket punched, run-of-the-mill experience just so as to use it as a gateway to get a good job? Or at least that's what they think they're doing.
I think probably the emphasis is on credentialism, and in the past, the great thing about the American university system is you wouldn't give you the credential unless you got the liberal arts education. It yoked those two things together,
Right.
and they've increasingly been separated. What we try to do is find schools that will give you a good credential that also will allow you or even compel you to get this serious education. So for instance, University of Chicago, Columbia University, two colleges not particularly conservative, but they both have core curricula where you will get a serious education, and they both make excellent credentials. So those are schools we recommend, guardedly in some cases, but go to a school by all means that will give you a good credential. We will show you how to make a good education out of the raw materials lying around at that college. I call it finding love among the ruins.
Okay. Very good. Again, Choosing the Right College, website collegeguide.org. I want to thank you again, John Zmirak, Editor-in-Chief of Choosing the Right College, for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'm Andy Nash. This has been InsideAcademia.tv. Please join us again next week, as every week, as we take you for a look behind the ivory curtain.